my goodness, the Pittsburgh Steelers do not have a head coach anymore. Mike Tomlin has officially stepped down as the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach. Let's talk about what got us here. Let's talk about how this obviously impacts the Pittsburgh Steelers and where it is going to impact them moving forward. Listen, I got to be completely honest with you guys. As a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, I'm actually beyond excited for this. I think that this was years in the making. I was yelling and clamoring for years that the Steelers had to move on from Mike Tomlin. And I honestly think that this is the best case scenario for both parties, being Mike Tomlin and being the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's talk about what got us here. Let's talk about the ramifications as to him stepping down and what I think is going to happen next with the Pittsburgh Steelers and where they're going to go coaching wise, quarterback wise. So yeah, let's just break it all down. So as we all know that the Pittsburgh Steelers got dominated yesterday by the Houston Texans. It wasn't even a close game. This was supposed to be an all-in year for the Pittsburgh Steelers, bringing in Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Jalen Ramsey, still having TJ Watt and Cam Hayward. It was supposed to be what we were told, a historic defense, and the offense was supposed to be humming, and we were going to see flashes of what we saw when we had Big Ben. They weren't able to find a quarterback post Big Ben. It was rough going with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson and Kenny Pickett. And Aaron Rodgers was supposed to come in, get them over the hump, help them make at least a deep push. Maybe not win a Super Bowl, but at least win a playoff game. And as we saw, the offense did nothing yesterday. And I think that this whole season, everything that happened from minicamp to the game yesterday was a culmination of why Mike Tomlin is stepping down as head coach. So in minicamp, Mike Tomlin was spouting and spewing and talking that this may be one of the best defenses that we will ever see in the NFL. And the players were saying the same exact thing. And it, on paper, had the potential to be just exactly that. But then the problems started coming around. And where I think the problem started coming around is the voice in the locker room being stale and the players thinking they actually had more power than Mike Tomlin. So you had TJ Watt, who was holding out of training camp and mini camp to get more money. And this was like a huge gut punch to the entire organization, to the fan base, to the players. It's like, hey, this is our leader on the defense, and he's now holding out for more money. What do we do? And this was just a back and forth thing, and people were talking about trading him. This was a nightmare for the Steelers. It really was. Thankfully, they got a deal done before the season. And then another problem happened, and Cam Hayward saw the money that TJ Watt got and decided he wanted to get paid as well. Granted, this was a situation where he did the same exact thing last year, restructured his deal, got even more money, but decided no, he wants even more. And yes, he played well, but he signed the contract. And doing this 2 years in a row just proved that Mike Tomlin lost control of the locker room and that being this player's coach that he was became a huge problem. So Cam Hayward gets his money. Yeah, whatever. Everybody's happy. At the same time, the Pittsburgh Steelers get rid of George Pickens because apparently he was a problem in the locker room, which if you went against anything that the Steelers wanted to be or you talk bad on whoever, I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of the George Pickens thing. Listen, we saw what happened on the field. We don't know what happened in the locker room. What I do know is that you got rid of an elite talent for absolute nothing. You got rid of him for a bag of chips. You get rid of him, send him to the Dallas Cowboys, and you're staring down the barrel of a gun of Scotty Miller being your wide receiver one, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, which I don't even think that guy is alive anymore. Where is Roman Wilson? So you're staring down that barrel of a gun. On top of that, you don't have a quarterback. You're doing this back and forth thing with Aaron Rodgers where you really want Rodgers to be your quarterback, but he's over here. We're thinking he's waiting to try to go to the Vikings. We're thinking that he might just retire. And he's like, I don't know if I want to play. And the Steelers are holding out all hope, being like, please, Aaron, please come play for us. We need you. You'll help us win the Super Bowl. Now, we know that Aaron Rodgers obviously comes and plays for the team, but throughout minicamp, there's no quarterback there. And Aaron Rodgers finally comes in the last week of minicamp, And yes, there was a sigh of relief, but could you imagine in a year where you want to go all in, you have your quarterback there early, you bring in DK Metcalf still, because you did that after you got rid of George Pickens, and then you gave DK Metcalf a bag. You still have DK Metcalf because you trade for him. You still have George Pickens, and then you still make those same moves where you have Darnell Washington, Jonnu Smith, who you bring in via trade, this Kenneth Gainwell, who was the one of the issues with the Steelers is that Kenneth Gainwell was the team MVP on offense. Actually, I think just the team MVP in general. That's a problem. A guy who's supposed to be a running back 2 for you, that's a problem when he is your team MVP. No disrespect to Kenny Gainwell. The guy played out of his freaking mind. The Steelers got every last bit out of Kenny Gainwell. But again, when you have DK Metcalf, when you have Jalen Warren, when you have Jonnu Smith, when you have Aaron Rodgers, why is your team MVP Kenny Gainwell? So everything with minicamp was just a disaster. And fans sensed it, but we were still giving them a pass, waiting for the season to happen. Obviously, the season happens week number 1 versus the New York Jets. And the defense that we were told by Mike Tomlin and the rest of the team that was supposed to be historic got absolutely blown out of the water. Now, the Steelers did win that game, and the offense looked good, but they gave up like 35 points to the Jets. The Jets, did you see what they did the rest of the year? You gave up 35 points to that team. The defense, it was not good. Now, we go throughout the year, and the defense starts to get a little bit better. They have a few games here and there where it's abysmal. That Packers game where Tucker Kraft had like 230 yards receiving, that's bad. But they do start to get a little bit better. TJ Watt is nothing like he used to be, though. That money that he signed, absolutely not worth it. Cam Hayward, his hold-in was not, his play was not warranted for the hold-in that he pulled. I will just say that right off the bat. But the defense did get better. The offense completely regressed. And this was a case of, I think, Mike Tomlin, Arthur Smith they wanted to do a less is more approach. Listen, they were used to the Big Ben approach where it was just chuck the ball deep and whatever. The way that Big Ben played then is actually better for this NFL. And I get that Aaron Rodgers is 42 years old and he doesn't have the same arm strength and accuracy that he did, obviously, when he was in his 20s and early 30s. But my goodness, the offensive game plan was the same exact thing as to when we had Kenny Pickett and Matt Canada. It was the same exact thing. And it makes me believe that, yes, Arthur Smith was calling the plays, but it definitely wasn't his game plan because this was the same exact thing that we saw with Kenny Pickett and Matt Canada. Just not good whatsoever. So the Steelers sneak their way into the playoffs on a missed kick, and then we get to this point. Yesterday, playing the Houston Texans, the Texans looked like they didn't want, well, I should say not the Texans. CJ Stroud looked like he did not want to continue playing in the playoffs. Giving the ball away, fumbling the ball, interceptions. Like, the guy was playing like he had a ticket already booked to Cancun. The Pittsburgh Steelers offense was playing the same exact way. And you take everything from the minicamp stuff to how bad the offense looked in the regular season. The defense looked bad. They did get better. And then this. Another year of 10-7, another year of getting boat raced in the playoffs. And throughout the regular season, after these bad losses, there were rumblings. Hey, we got to get Mike Tomlin out of here. The fan base is chanting to fire Mike Tomlin. Like, this doesn't usually happen. There was fire Canada chance, and then they got him out of there. There was fire Tomlin chance. He stepped down. Fans are booing Renegade. Like, fans were completely sick of it after this loss. After these losses, I mean, obviously, there were bad losses on the entire season. So what is next for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Because, listen, Mike Tomlin steps down, and I think this is the best case scenario, honestly, for both sides. Hey, before we continue the rest of the video, I want to say thank you guys so much for making it this far. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and that bell notification. And follow us on all of our other short form platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube Shorts. You guys know where to find us. Hail Mary Media. I appreciate you guys. So, what is next for the Pittsburgh Steelers now that they don't have a head coach? Now that they need to go look for a quarterback? Where I think they're going to go is I think they're going to go younger on the side of head coach. While there are guys out there that I think they could probably bring in and they could make an impact, I don't think they're going to get John Harbaugh. I don't think they want to get John Harbaugh. There's just too much overlap there with him being a Ravens. You know how that is. I don't think they're going to get somebody like a Mike McCarthy, a Jason Garrett, a Kirk Signetti. I don't think they're going to go out and get somebody older. I think they are going to look for a younger. I want them to go offensive minded. I still think they're going to go with a defensive minded head coach. So I'm thinking somebody like a Chris Shula right now, the defensive coordinator for the Rams. I'm thinking somebody like a Brian Flores right now. Can they try to pull over somebody like a Marcus Freeman? Those are the type of names, and we're still going to see some other guys who are looking for head coaching jobs. Maybe the guy, what's his name from the Detroit Lions defensive coordinator. Bring him over. I think that they are going to try and find somebody who is younger, will be around for a longer time, because you bring in somebody like a Mike McCarthy, you bring in somebody like a Kirk Signetti. Obviously, they're in their late 60s. A Kelvin Shepard, bringing in somebody like him as well. Younger, defensive minded. While I want the Steelers to go offensive minded, that's just not the way that they are built. I mean, they always just have these defensive minded guys, which I don't really care, to be honest. The Steelers just needed to make a move, or at least this move that was made. They didn't fire Tomlin. Tomlin stepped down, where there's a new voice in the locker room. And that's exactly what the Steelers needed. Now, I will say with this, the Steelers are not a very attractive place right now. They're not. They have a very expensive defense that is aging. They have DK Metcalf. They have no quarterback, and the offensive line is abysmal. You need to bring in somebody who is incredibly enthusiastic and ready, frankly, to rebuild. Because by time you really establish yourself as a head coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers and get your guy and get your guys and your schemes in, Cam Hayward's going to be gone. TJ Watt's going to be gone. There are aging players. Jalen Ramsey's going to be gone. There are players on this team that you can expect to not have in a few years. So this isn't the most attractive job on the market. So you got to get somebody in there, and you can't be like all these other teams like the Browns and like the Giants, where you bring in a guy hoping that they can rebuild, and then one bad year you fire him. The Steelers aren't that. This hire for the Pittsburgh Steelers is going to be a decade longer type hire, like a 1 or 2 decade type hire. You are in it for the absolute long haul. And that's why I think the Steelers are looking to go younger. Somebody in their 40s, somebody in their you know, early 50s to bring in, like I said, a Kelvin Shepard, a Chris Shula, Brian Flores, somebody like that you are willing to hand the keys to rebuild this team, bring in your guy at quarterback, rebuild this defense after TJ Watt and Cam Hayward and Jalen Ramsey leave, rebuild this offensive line, because Troy Valtano yesterday was an absolute turnstile. So the guy that you need to bring in, you need to lock down that they have a definitive plan for what they're going to do. I have zero problem if the next guy comes in and says, "Hey, I'm going to be completely honest with the fans, with everybody. We are going to suck for 1 to 2 years." Now, they're not going to specifically say that, but I actually wouldn't mind if they said that, because that's one thing with the Steelers. You knew you were going to get at least over 500, barely missing the playoffs or barely squeaking into the playoffs. You knew you were going to get that every single year, and you were picking 20th. That's not the best way to rebuild your team. I am hoping this next head coach comes in, understands that they are going to probably suck. I'm not telling them to tank. Just know you're probably going to suck. But if they can get their guy at quarterback, if they can build out their defense, and if they know that this is a decade-long thing, that they are in it for the long haul with the Steelers, perfectly fine with me. If they look at that blueprint that the New England Patriots put together, where after they lost Bill Belichick and after they lost Tom Brady, and now look at them, 2 seed in the playoffs, won a home playoff game, Drake May, Mike Vrabel, they're an absolute juggernaut. They're a wagon. The Steelers need to look at that. The Steelers could even look at what happened with the Washington Commanders, where anything can happen as long as you get your guy at quarterback. Commanders, nobody thought they were going to make it to the NFC Championship game, and they did because they had good coaching. Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, and they had a great quarterback. I think that this was best case scenario for Mike Tomlin because now he can go. He didn't get fired, so that's a good way to save face. He can go make money on TV, and if he still wants to be a head coach, he can obviously go be a coach somewhere. Listen, I'm not sitting here saying that Mike Tomlin is a terrible coach. I'm not saying that whatsoever, but I am excited and happy that he is gone for the simple fact that it was stale. And people were telling me, "Hey, be careful what you wish for." The goal every year is not to go 10-7, 9-8, and get bounced in the first round. That's not the goal. I would rather have 2 to 3, 4 years of being an absolute miserable franchise and finally building out good, getting good top players. And I'm not talking picking 20th. This was best case scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This was best case scenario for Mike Tomlin. Obviously, I hope they get this hire right, but who's to say they will? Who's to say they won't? But what I do know is that a new voice needed to be in the locker room. So if you guys have made it this far, let me know who you think the Pittsburgh Steelers should hire as their next head coach, or who do you think will be their next head coach? Again, I'm thinking somebody like a Shula, a Kelvin Shepard, a Marcus Freeman, a Brian Flores. I don't know if Marcus Freeman's actually going to leave Notre Dame, but he might. He might. So let me know your thoughts on this entire situation. I know this was a lot of rambling, but I just needed to talk about this Steelers season because it was rough. It was bad. This was an all-in season, and it was terrible. It was a failure. It was an utter failure. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think about this situation and who you think is going to be the next head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. What a day. Here we go.